Hello, and welcome to Dig It. I'm Peter Brown, and hosting the show with me today is Chris Day. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Peter.
So, August now. How you doing, Chris?
Well, cooled down a little bit, Peter, after last month and those incredible record-breaking temperatures.
Weren't they amazing? I mean, I've never experienced heat like that in the UK. It's like you walking out of an aeroplane when you go on holiday, the heat off the tarmac.
Yeah, it was the same experience, wasn't it? And of course, our poor gardens, of course, have really taken quite a hammering, haven't they, with that incredible... And
Definitely, yeah. I mean, my lawn, I haven't bothered watering it. I just thought, well, it'll grow back. But it was the containers that... Every day, my hang baskets out the front of the house only get the sun in the afternoon, so they do okay, but even them, on the really hot times and when there's a bit of a breeze about, watering them twice a day.
Indeed, yeah, that's been coming on. And of course the heat generated on some of the pots as well, so much to be praised about having glazed pots, because they definitely are cooler than some of the darker black plastic pots, which I found... In my garden, I could hardly put my hands on the containers that were hot in the afternoon after finishing work. So
yeah, certainly. And my conservatory, I've got an aloe plant, and I watered that one day, and I picked it up, and honestly, it must have been about 40 degrees. The plant, it was amazing. It's still alive and doing well, but I guess. It's more suited to the warm climates than some of the other plants that we keep. Probably
enjoying it, but it is a bit of a wake-up call, isn't it, Peter? That the way we garden is definitely going to be changing. If this is going to be coming, the experts were saying we could have these sort of temperatures every 3 years now.
Okay.
So 40 degrees, that becomes the norm for these blips. We'll have to garden accordingly and have to forfeit our lawn perhaps for a few months of the year. If necessary. But I always think, the lawn is the first thing to look a bit dishevelled, but it's obviously the first thing to pick up when we do get some rain.
Well, that's it, and we've had a few showers, not much. I mean, I did get caught in a rainstorm the other night on my way home, but it was, to be fair, very nice and cooling, wasn't it?
It was. No, it's difficult, and of course that has a knock-on effect to the things we're having to do, whether we're having to do obviously more watering, more weeding, more pest and disease control. It all sort of adds to the equation,
doesn't it?
It does.
That's it. And what we got on this month then, Chris? Any good shows to go and see?
Yeah, well, there are actually, Peter. I mean, August traditionally is the quieter month, but it is obviously the height of summer. So we've got on the 3rd to the 7th of August, we've got the RHS Hyde Hall Flower Show over in Chelmsford, Essex. Obviously, one of the many RHS gardens.
Yep.
I've been to Hyde Hall, but I haven't been to the flower show, so I can't really comment, but I think it's going to be a good one.
Okay.
On Friday, the 4th of August, we've got a summer cycle at Kew Gardens.
Isn't it? Read about that, isn't it? I had no idea Kew was that big. When I saw it, I was like, you take 5 minutes to cycle around there, but no, it's 300 acres or so, isn't it?
It is. It's huge. I mean, when I've walked around it, not that many times over the years, but it is to get to, say, the Palm House to, say, the Alpine area. Gosh, It's a bit of a trek. So on 2 wheels probably will make it a lot more enjoyable. And it would
be a lovely place to cycle around with the family, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So that's been organised between 5:30 and 8:30. So you've got a few hour window at a cooler time of the day to enjoy Kew.
Nice.
And then I'm doing another masterclass on the 17th and repeated on the 20th as part of our masterclass free talks. And this coming month we're going to be looking at growing your favourite hobby plants.
Okay.
So I'm going to be picking out a few of my favourites and then just talking generally about how to learn and find out more about our favourites. So things like dahlias, alpines, carnivorous plants, bonsai, all those things are going to be chatted about. So a little bit different.
Excellent.
And then on Friday and Saturday, that's the 12th and 13th, the Shrewsbury Flower Show in Quarry Park, Shrewsbury. I went there years ago, and it's a beautiful show. It feels like a sort of national flower show. However, it's very quintessentially English. It's quite small scale.
Okay.
But there's show jumping. There's lots of things as well as lots of lovely flowers and vegetables to look at.
Excellent. So if you're up in Shrewsbury area, good one to go and explore.
Yeah, definitely recommended. And finally, on Friday the 19th through to Sunday the 21st, we've got the RHS Garden Rosemoor Flower Show down in lovely Devon. So
okay,
top and tailing the month of August, the flower shows at the RHS Gardens. So another good one. If you're obviously an RHS member, ideal. If you're not and you're in the area on holiday, want to have a look at. Sure. I
was thinking about flower shows. I saw that the Rose Flower Show has returned to Squires at Shepperton again. Unfortunately, we just missed it. It was the end of July, but it's nice to see that's come back after COVID.
Indeed, and of course we had the Hampton Court Flower Show last month as well, and the flower marquee, the floral marquee, which is obviously dedicated to roses, was more popular than ever this year.
Yeah, because roses seem to, like you say, they are really popular. Because I noticed Blue Diamond have released their Elizabeth Ashbrook rose, which they grow in their Fry's nursery, which does lots of different roses for the group. But yeah, really interesting, isn't it?
It's interesting. Yeah, Fry's roses. They were originally, I think they're still based in Knutsford in Cheshire. Obviously, good rose growing country. Yeah. And in their time, Fry's were monumental. You'll often see the Fry's name as part of the variety name of a lot of the really popular roses have long gone by. So, I mean, it's good that obviously Blue Diamond are supporting. However, those varieties are obviously now exclusive to their sort of 40, 50 garden centres, which is a bit interesting, isn't it, Peter?
Well, it restricts the market a bit, but I suppose from their point of view, they think, brilliant, nobody else can get these, we'll cash in on them.
Yes.
In the same way that David Austin has done a similar thing with the rose market, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah.
It's, I suppose, the nature of life, isn't it? The bigger you get, the more you want to keep on growing, and the smaller nurseries and garden centres possibly get squeezed out. Yeah.
I think the only thing is, Peter, the only people not benefiting from this change of thought is the charities, because if you've got a charity rose like the Sir Tom Moore rose, which has done incredibly well, that's been available to every single garden centre, and in my visits around, I've seen it everywhere.
Yep.
So for the charity, they're getting the focus and the highlight, which obviously they might lose out on if they're being a little bit more exclusive. But hey, as you say, horses for courses.
Yeah, that's where we're at the moment.
Indeed.
And things, what goes around comes around. And
indeed, yes, yeah.
Just look at Wyvale.
Indeed, yes.
So, and locally to us, I see Webbs have taken over Millet's Farm, which is, I think, it's part of the Frost Group, and from what I understand, the Frost are splitting up, and they're selling off the sites now. So
Millet's Farm is just in the it's Oxfordshire, isn't it?
Yeah,
just
Oxfordshire.
In the Cotswold. I think one thing I saw in one of the press releases, Peter, that they thought their customer focus was very similar, so that was the reason they went for those preferred buyers. So it's nice to see that's happening, isn't it? They're not just selling it off, and they're thinking very carefully about their customer base.
The future of the garden centres, I suppose. It's good, isn't it?
It is.
And I picked up about coffee logs that we sell.
Yes.
They're a B Corp certified company, which means they're already very environmentally friendly. But they've won a best for the world B Corp certificate, which recognises them as a exceptionally positive company, and the impact of their product is helping reduce our carbon footprint. Which
and just remind me, Peter, we supply them with beans.
Yes, we supply them with the grounds from our coffee from the restaurant. So we feed it into them, and obviously we buy the logs from them, and then hopefully our customers burn them and help with sort of complete the cycle, I suppose, isn't it?
Yes, so getting the benefit of the coffee and the heat as well.
Yeah. I've not actually smelt one burning. I always wonder whether they smell like a nice cup of coffee, because I think that's the best thing about when you make fresh coffee is the aroma. And
I have tried them in my solid fuel burner, but of course you close it up.
You don't get the smell, do you? No.
So for it to be more eco-efficient as well.
Yeah, but it's a good product, and it's a very good company to deal with, so please support them some more. And a few episodes ago, Chris, you told us you were going to do us a peat-free trial. How's that going? Because you've given us a few updates, and I'm really keen now to hear about how you how the plants are doing now they've established.
And I think this is the thing. This has been the real test this last month or so with the
Extra
temperature.
dry weather, I bet.
Yeah, and the fact that we'll be putting more water. And I have to say that we've had obviously these record-breaking temperatures. My memory results were that the Homebase one I used in my baskets have been okay.
Right.
However, the supermarket options, they were from Lidl and Aldi, started okay. The plants have grown really well. However, the moisture retaining qualities have been incredibly poor.
Oh dear. And has the aroma disappeared yet?
It has, yes. I think the fragrance of the flowers now has replaced them there.
Okay.
But they have become a problem to re-moisten, so we're going to have to look at that. The other thing, of course, is that even at the Garden Centre, over the last few weeks, we've been struggling, obviously, on the irrigation side of things. And it has been, again, the peat-free products, which obviously our wonderful plant suppliers have been trialling, obviously, as well, have sort of caused a few issues. So we are still in a very much sort of wait and see in how we can formulate this as well, which is interesting because, the more you water, the more you're going to have to feed your peat-free compost. That's a sort of a given. And obviously that in turn can lead to nutrient deficiencies. One thing I did find, I used one of the peat-free compost on growing some beans in a raised bed.
Right.
And I think a couple of episodes ago we mentioned about your yellow beans.
Yep.
I've now had the yellow bean syndrome.
Okay.
The plants were growing really well. They got almost to the top of the netting, and they were starting to show flowers, and then the plants went incredibly yellow. So I've had to get lots of feed. They're coming back, thank goodness.
Yep.
But that was a bit of a blip, which I normally would never experience with a peat-free compost. And I suppose, yes, this season has been a bit unusual in many respects, weather-wise. Certainly, yeah, I think we have to put that in as well.
So something on growing runner beans, I was talking to someone in our bee club, and they were saying they go out and mist and spray their beans because runner beans love humidity, and that helps them set their flowers.
That's right, yes.
I'd not heard of that before.
So you can do that, and you can syringe them, you can mist spray them basically.
Right, okay.
You can do that in the morning, preferably before the sun's really high in the sky and it's going to cause problems of scorch, or you do it in the evening. That's what I tend to do mine. So I watered the raised bed, give it a feed, and then I usually then go around with me the end of my host mister on there and just put it onto a different adjustment on a fine mist and go up and down the plants as well. So that helps the process.
Okay.
But beans are very, very sensitive. If they don't get that and they get this what they call dry set, because the pollen hasn't moved within the flower, then you're going to have some
you don't get many
as well.
beans.
Yeah, no, you don't, unfortunately. So I mean, I think going forward, Pete, I think I'm going to have a look at maybe looking at what I can do to my peat-free compost when I use it. So do I add some of the swell gel products to hold moisture?
Yep.
Broadleaf P4, which obviously we sell. It's a good product for holding. It's one of these water-retaining polymers. Or do we mix some of our own compost to our mixes to add that as well? So I think there's going to be lots of options. And it's interesting, Amateur Gardening magazine, a couple of weeks ago in there, they've been doing a trial as well using Cosmos. And they've had some really good. So if our listeners can have a look back on Amateur Gardening, go back a couple of weeks into sort of mid-July, but they basically tried growing in peat, which they got very basically impressive results. They tried their homemade compost, had good success. However, they had many weeds. But
I suppose that because it's not gone through a biodigester.
Yes.
Things that get the compost up to sort of 60, 70 degrees that kill all the seeds. That would be why.
Don't go there. And obviously, grown in peat free, they said slow to start, but they caught up. I mean, in all the products I've been using, Peter, I've not had any problems with weeds.
Really? I don't know what it is about your growing conditions, Chris. even when I get bags out of the garden centre from years gone by, I'd happily grow weeds amongst all my seedlings.
I was looking around the garden last night and into the pots and containers. No, there's been very few. I mean, obviously the odd one or two, but nothing, problematic as it were. But so I suppose that's the thing as well. So so it's been a bit of a mixed bag, mixed fortunes. Everything I think started well. I think for the seed sowing side of things, when we were talking back in March and April, absolutely fine, provided you run them through the sieve. However, it's what happens next when you're potting your plants up. That. But yeah, but obviously,
so the winner so far this year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be obviously Jack's Magic is probably there as a peat or a lower reduction peat product. That's still it's now down to 50%. It used to be 90%, so they've reformulated it. So you've got that. So if you're still hankering to use a peat-based compost, that's obviously in the marketplace still. However, yeah, I would still contend that my Homebase one is
Homebase has performed best so
far.
far.
So far, yeah. But we've still got another couple of months to go, haven't we? So
I think as with all of these things, new products come out, and one of the ones that we've got back in again is the wool and bracken.
Yes, Dalefoot
compost, which I think that's had some very good reviews. So it'll be interesting to see how that does, and I'm sure there'll be some other ones that hit the market in the next few years that will hopefully get rid of the issues that we've got.
I'm going to trial. There's a product which of the ones we've done, I haven't trialled it, and that's the performance range, which is now in stock.
The Miracle-Gro performance, because they're
that's
organic, isn't it? Yeah.
So I haven't given that a go, so I'll give that a go for the autumn and see how that fares.
Brilliant.
Again, it might be that we in the autumn when we're doing our autumn winter plantings and planting up, it's a different ball game basically, because there isn't the pressure of extra moisture being required. There's probably going to be enough. Maybe it's what we do in the summer season is going to be the
critical bit.
But work in progress, I think.
So I found an interesting article about plastic grass the other day, Chris.
Okay.
Basically, a petition has been rebuffed by Parliament about the idea of banning plastic grass in domestic situations. Plastic grass is one of those products that I think in certain situations can look really good. It can be a lot easier. I mean, for example, for disabled people who want a nice clean product but like the look of grass, it can replace their lawn and still gives them the aesthetics of it. But on the other side of that coin, it's not recyclable, even though it's plastic, because the way that it's obviously laid on sand, it wears out after a while, so it creates paths. It discolours and fades, and it wears out. So I guess it's sort of a lot of it's ending up in landfill, isn't it?
Yeah, which is not good news, is it, really? And as the government is always trying to, they're very much behind, as you say, the pink campaign at the moment. You know, the fact that we've got only a few years, the clock is ticking there. Then you've got this huge growth in the fake turf sort of brigade who are wanting it to be out there. I suppose it's all been driven by obviously sort of football clubs, hasn't it? And amenity arenas there. I think it's, as you say, it's probably got its place. However, I think the pros of it, or the cons of it, should I say, are quite a lot in view of the fact that obviously it does heat up quite a bit as well. I mean, it generates heat.
Yeah, because you were saying that was it RSPCA were recommending if you've got plastic grass not to let your cats and dogs.
Because of the temperatures it can build up on. Because at the end of the day, it's synthetic, isn't it? It's not natural. Yep. And if it's on a nice bed of sand, that's going to warm up even more so. So that, and the fact that you're putting a lifeless material into maybe quite a substantial area of your garden, can't be good for our pollinators and the bees and all the things which we need to attract.
Especially when you've got lawns like mine, which are full of clover and
lovely. That's great.
Yeah. Possibly not great for having the uniform green colour that some people like, but if you don't mind the odd patch of white flowers,
there's nothing wrong with a few buttercups and daisies, is there? In the scheme of things as well.
That's it.
Yeah, I think it's just getting that measured of it. But this article, Peter, I did notice that the gentleman who we had as a guest early on our podcast,
David Hedges-Gower.
He comments. Yes, so and he was sort of suggesting that it is a serious environmental issue in view of what we've just discussed is there, and if obviously we could have got to 100,000 signatures on that petition, maybe something would have been done.
Yeah.
So maybe it needs to be brought out again and reformulated, and maybe a stronger campaign. Maybe when we've got a new prime minister, perhaps.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And bring it back into the light again, because it's not a small amount of product that you put down, is it?
No,
I mean, just thinking the furniture, a lot of the furniture that we now sell is the cushions are sort of weather resistant and they're made out of recycled plastic bottles.
Yep.
I don't know if any of the artificial turfs are being made out of recycled plastic, yes, and if they are, well, at least that's one part of them, but then equally it would be better to create it as something that, as an end product, can be recycled again.
Yeah, I think the product needs to be rethought through as a recycled product, doesn't it, from the beginning, and then promoted in such a way, then perhaps they probably wouldn't be getting the stick which obviously the anti-lobby are suggesting.
Yeah. But at least the benefit of it is you don't have to cut it.
No, and you don't have to. Well, no mow May isn't a problem, is it? So another bit of news, Peter, which I thought was really interesting in view of the fact that, I mean, I remember certainly the late 70s and 80s flower parades over in Spalding, Lincolnshire, at a time when obviously all the tulip growers at the time were obviously producing their wonderful bulbs, as we know, and obviously using the flowers to decorate these wonderful displays, often sort of vehicles or inanimate objects, which were then paraded down the town centre, and they were huge attractions. Attracting up to 250,000 people at the time, and it looks like they're going to be coming back.
Brilliant,
which I think is fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because I've got vague memories of seeing like floats and trailers going through town parades and things like that, which were decorated with flowers, and certainly haven't seen anything like that. The Northampton parades are predominantly school children and doing dances and different religious groups putting on floats and making lots of noise, and it's really good fun. But I haven't seen a flower display in there for a long while. No,
and I suppose it's the byproduct of obviously the wonderful floral horticulture in that part of the world, isn't it? Obviously well known for daffodils, tulips and other bulbs, and so they basically do all the preparation, and they've already got, I think, 400 volunteers have already registered to pick the flowers. That's going to be a big old job, isn't it? But you can imagine sort of local associations, probably WI groups and similar, really getting involved in this and making it quite a thing as well. And it's had a bit of money through a crowdfunding site too. So I think it's really good to celebrate. And obviously we're lucky that we have one of our main suppliers, obviously Taylor's, literally down the road from there. So I'm sure they probably are. We probably need to beg the question at some point to find out if they're going to be involved at all.
Yeah, we should do. And I suppose it's, in a way, it's a bit like the well dressing up in Derbyshire, isn't it? Where they, that's always beautiful to go and have a look at and see all the different villages decorating their wells with flowers. That's always a lovely spectacle. So
something to look forward to probably next April and May then.
Yeah. And going back to Kew Gardens, I hear they've realised they made a mistake with naming their water lilies.
Well, this is a new revelation. I'm sure many of our listeners will have seen the TV coverage, because it got a lot of coverage a few weeks ago, but it's now sort of hitting all the gardening magazines. So it was basically hiding in plain sight for 170 years, and with a bit of DNA analysis, now they've found that it's related to the one which they thought they had, but they've obviously got two species out there rather than one.
That's it. But the giant water lilies, they are really iconic, aren't they? They're
beautiful things. Yeah.
I always imagine, sort of as a child, being able to run across them, and they are so beautiful, and the flowers that they have as well are pretty big, aren't they, from memory?
That's it. And I think that's right. They white on the first day, then they turn pink on the second, and they close by noon. So they open. So I think they rely on moths and more night pollinators as well. So that makes them quite specific, unique as well.
But unfortunately, not frost hardy, so don't grow very well in the ponds here.
You need lots of warmth, and obviously lots of money to keep the plants going along. I did see one. I went to Chatsworth Gardens a few years ago, and they've got one of the original plants, I think, of the Amazonica type there. And it's interesting because they do produce quite sharp spines around the edges, and that's again like cacti. It's a deterrent for animals as well. So they look after themselves. To produce that sort of size of leaf, you probably would want to look after yourself as a plant.
Definitely.
I noticed, Peter, as well, that in Amateur Gardening magazine, TV's most popular gardening expert, Terry Walton, he's a regular on Radio 2 as well, has called to look at how we are more careful with our chemicals. They're setting up a Welsh water pest smart project, which is really calling on gardeners to be careful where they get rid of their chemicals.
Okay.
It's all about, obviously, being more of a natural approach to the way we garden. But I think what Terry is saying is, what we all try to do, use chemicals wisely, and certainly don't dispose of them where you've got a watercourse, near your property.
Yeah.
Follow the recommendations there. But I think, it goes without saying that, as gardeners, we need to be very responsible on how we not only use chemicals in the right way at the right time of the day and such like, but obviously how we dispose of them as well.
Definitely. And I think it goes across the board, doesn't it? And you think that glyphosate has been pretty much stopped being used by the agribusinesses now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if we can use organic and sort of safer products that don't get into watercourses, that's obviously the best way forwards.
Yeah.
And same with fertilisers, though, isn't it?
It is.
There's a lot of talk at the moment, and chicken farmers of the Wye Valley polluting the River Wye.
Oh, okay.
That's in sort of Wales, Monmouthshire, I think, from memory, where just by the sheer number of the chicken farms there are down there, and the fact that obviously the chickens create muck that gets raked out into the outside, which then gets rained on, and then that feeds into the watercourses.
Lots of nitrogen then.
The nitrogen and the phosphates get into the water supply, and you get massive algal blooms, and that clogs up the rivers, which kills all the fish. I think it's all, obviously, as humans, we're always growing in numbers, so our demand on our resources are always increasing, but it's trying to make sure that as we do that, we actually change our philosophies and
just be a little bit more responsible,
become more careful with what we're doing, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's more information. We'll put it on the podcast show notes to find out more about the PetSmart website.
Brilliant. Okay, and I see Peter Seabrook's sweet peas are in the news. He was he was a fantastic sweet pea lover, wasn't he? He loved them. Yes,
and it's one of the. If you read anything about Peter Seabrook, at the age of only 6 years old, he used his pocket money to grow them, and he saw the commercial properties of growing sweet peas for obviously growing for cutting. He did see that, he recognised that. So, and he was obviously a great advocate of promoting them in the gardening trade, and obviously to have a variety named after you is obviously a beautiful tribute to his. And this is going to be available. The seed's going to be available September, October, and £1 from every seed packet sold will be donated to the Flora Fantasia Garden at RHS Hyde Hall, which was, of course, created and maintained by Peter. And, of course, we mentioned that earlier, there's a wonderful flower show there this month as well. So if you're going over that way, you'll see some of Peter's work, which obviously has been continued and developed now through various charities.
And you had a nice day out recently, didn't you? Or it's just a morning,
it
really,
was.
They're so local to us, we can get there and back very quickly. But where have you been, Chris?
Yeah, I went over to the Ball Colegrave Open event, which was just for the trade, and it was an opportunity to see what they are doing for all as gardeners for next year. So you get a bit of a glimpse of what new plants are on the trial grounds.
Because Ball Colegrave grows masses of bedding. I mean, I can remember when I first went there, I was just blown away by the tiny little plugs and how automated the process is. But equally, when you see the plants grown through to what they grow into, and I think you've only got to look round at what councils have now got on in public displays.
Most definitely, yes.
In their hanging baskets as you drive through villages and things like that. It's an incredible achievement what they've done with, I'm just thinking things like impatiens, which 20, 30 years ago would come and go, and they needed quite specific growing conditions, whereas they've manipulated the species a little bit and selected specific characters that are now better at lasting droughts and flowering in slightly harder conditions, and
also, Peter, they've actually developed them to overcome disease, and that was of course the big thing with the obviously the dreadful Impatian mildew, which devastated, and actually for 5, maybe 7 years we just didn't have busy lilies available in the gardening trade. So it's good. Interestingly, they did collect a big award for their busy lizzie at the recent HTA awards. That was the Impatium Glimmer Appleblossom,
right?
And it was recognised as the best in show at the HTA Plant Awards. They thought it had a wonderful, stunning colour, had large iridescent, these lovely rose-like flowers. This is a busy lizzie with a double flower, basically.
Okay.
So thinking quite out of the box, really, and it produces a nice rounded sort of, and it obviously has a nice sort of quality of strength and upright growth to it as well. Brilliant. So a lovely plant. They brought the apple blossom got the top award. However, there's other colours in the range as well. Which going round the open day, I saw the red ones and obviously the burgundy ones, which were really nice too.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, Peter, yes, all the usual suspects were there, your marigolds, your wonderful the cool wave petunias, but lots and lots of perennials.
Okay.
Perennials is seen to be the next big thing in using them for, which these are perennials which have long flowering seasons. So things like lobelia, coreopsis, echinaceas, and then using those within the municipal town displays to complement your bedding plants.
Yeah.
So using, because the biggest problem, of course, with bedding plants is height. You never really get lots of height with a bedding plant. Yep. However, perennials, we usually get to 2, 3, maybe 4 foot tall quite quickly in a season, and that can be really good. And for us gardeners, this is great news. And the whole idea of mixing perennials and bedding plants in a pot really is the way forward, and I think we're going to see an awful lot about that at the moment. And certainly at the Garden Centre here, we've planted up a few experimental ones to see how our customers like the displays, and so far they've had a definite tick of approval.
Brilliant.
So it's just getting our mind frames away from perhaps geraniums and fuchsias. I mean, they've got a wonderful place in our gardens. However, we know the cost of living crisis now, and we know that heating costs are going to have a big effect on bedding plant growers. Perennials, of course, don't need that injection of heat at the beginning of the season. So mixing this, mix and matching our bedding and perennials might be the way forward, and I think that's quite exciting.
Definitely. And our top 5 this month, we thought we'd do pest control and bug killers. So, Chris, how are the sales looking?
It is the season, isn't it? So, number 5, Provanto Ultimate Fruit and Veg Killer.
Yep.
Which you can buy as a concentrate and as a ready to use, which is good. At number 4, Toprose Bug Killer.
Back on the roses again.
Yep. So it's those little aphids causing lots of problems. It's good to see a rose product in the top 5. At number 3, Bugclear Ultra Vine Weevil Control.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've got a lot of our customers who have lots of containers, so obviously vine weevil control is the way to go, and little adults will be around shortly, so they're the ones which need to be dealt with. At number 2, we've got Provanto Ultimate Bug Killer.
Okay.
Obviously been reformulated, so it's still a lot safer than it used to be for using in the garden, and of course it's perfect for controlling most of your problematic sap-sucking pests. And at number 1, Bugclear Ultra Gun, which is for the edibles from Scott's. Which
nice to see. So people are obviously growing lots of fruit and vegetables at the moment.
They are, and I think with the Bugclear Ultra Gun, people are using that on their edibles and a lot on their ornamentals as well. Because again, the way the product is branded, it encourages you to basically use it as an all-round spray, which I think is particularly useful. So a good top 5 this month.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know we talked about it a bit before, but allotments, Chris. You found some figures this time on how much they cost to rent from private companies.
Yes, this is actually a BBC News report which came out literally a couple of days ago, so I picked it up. There's a company called Roots and Ards. These are people who sort of manage allotment sites.
Yep.
A starter patch, 36 square metres. You're looking at £220 per year. which is, by contrast, 63% of local authorities usually charge below £70 a year. So how does that tally with your own plot, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, my allotment, I think, is about £40 a year, and it's, I'm going to say very roughly, 30 metres by 10 metres.
Okay.
So an awful lot cheaper
more,
than these private ones. So I guess I'm very fortunate. I hadn't quite realised how fortunate I was to actually have a local authority. Well, ours is an allotment association, so it's not owned. The land isn't owned by the council, but it follows their rules.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, the other figures that came out, which I found really interesting, is that there's only 330,000 allotment plots across the UK.
Yeah.
Now, if that, I wonder whether that's 330,000 individual plots, or whether that's 330,000 individual
plots,
allotment areas, which are then broken down into the individual plots. Because, it's.
Yeah.
I thought that's quite a small number
in view of the 100,000 on the waiting list at the moment, which again is another stark reminder that especially now we might be thinking more about growing our own food if we haven't got a garden to do it in.
That's it. It's such fun as well, isn't it, having an allotment. It's a nice space to go and enjoy, I think. So I thoroughly recommend it.
And I see a lot of people use it, if they've got the permissions, obviously, to grow things like cut flowers as well. I mean, you can use them for so many other things as well. And maybe if you're allowed to grow soft fruit or maybe some orchard fruits too. So,
because on my allotment, there's one gentleman who's got 3 plots and he grows vines. So he's obviously growing wine.
Right.
Quite a few allotments have quite mature apple trees and pear trees and fruit trees, which take up a lot of space. So you do look at those ones and you think, that's possibly not yielding quite as much as other ones, which are so intensively used, and the amount of produce you can grow. I mean, my neighbour, she comes from Kenya, and she loves growing maize. And every year, at least one of her allotments is just covered in maize and does really well with it. And obviously it's a product that she can't easily buy over in this country, so she makes her special porridge from this maize, and she loves it, and she's really pleased to have the space. So I think it is a great resource.
It is, and obviously those waiting lists sort of suggest that those waiting lists are probably going to grow even more. So if you are in the market for an allotment this coming year, don't waste your time. Get yourself booked down and signed up.
Definitely. And obviously, thinking about the allotment, it reminds me that I need to carry on watering mine and carry on weeding it. But what jobs have we got to be getting on with this month, Chris?
Yeah, so for those people who haven't necessarily got an allotment, but they want to grow some potatoes, we're in the month of August, so that's the time to grab your summer planting potatoes. So
the Christmas potatoes need planting now, don't they?
So 5 good varieties out there from Taylor's bulbs. I think 10 tubers could cost you sort of $3.99, so good value for money. Don't need to really do any chitting, just get yourself a decent sized pot, something probably sort of 30-40 centimetres in diameter. Bit of compost, bit of peat-free compost, or a bit of recycled compost from your compost heap. Put a small amount in the bottom, pop your tuber in, lightly cover it, and then of course earth up within the pot as
they grow up.
And hopefully by the end of September, October, you'll have a lot of foliage, and of course those stems because they're stem tubers, will be producing those wonderful tubers for November lifting onwards, and hopefully you'll have some for Christmas. So give them a go. They're well worth the thing, and especially last year we had such a mild winter. A lot of people had good success because the plants continued to grow well into the late autumn.
Okay.
Yep. So that's potatoes. So, and then obviously, if you got your allotments plot and you've got plenty of space, then maybe get some Japanese onions sown.
Okay.
So that's the Senshyu sort of Semi-Globe Yellow, which is the one you tend to sow any time from now right through to the late August, and they're going to give you a crop next July. So you are really thinking 12 months ahead as well. If you do more seed sowing, some spring cabbage can go in now, some Chinese cabbage, corn salad, some winter lettuce, And of course, fast-growing crops like obviously spring onions and radish will give you a crop by mid to the end of September, so you can get those in.
Still time to grow things for this year then.
Yes, indeed. And I even, some of the round carrots, that's what I'm going to be sowing over the next week or two, just because I've got some space now in my raised carrot bed. I'm going to get some more of those in because they've been so productive too.
How do the round ones do? Are they so sort of soil specific in the sense of, from my understanding with carrots, if you grow them in rocky or stony ground, they tend to create funny shapes.
Yes.
Are the little round ones the same, or are they?
Yeah, the thing is that Peter, exactly. If you're cultivated, say, sort of 15 centimetres, 6 inches of your soil, the round carrots are definitely the ones to go for because you'll get some nice, good rounded product from that. Whereas the longer ones can be a bit more faint. I grew the Amsterdam forcing this year in my raised beds because I've got the depth, and they've been actually very good. It's the first time I've actually grown decent sized carrots ever in my garden because I was a little bit careful with me seed sowing. I sowed them very, very thinly, obviously trying to avoid the carrot fly, and I did do a little bit of thinning out. I had to because I was a bit overzealous with me seed sowing, but they've been really good. So this year I've actually grown both the round and the traditional in a raised bed, and they've been fine. Just take lots of water though. That's been the issue as well. So raised beds definitely make sure your own produced compost is going there rather than just keeping them solely peat free.
Okay, well maybe give that a go then. Thanks. And just thinking about my hanging baskets this year, Chris, should I be deadheading them?
In the main, yes, because there's going to be a few things there. If you don't, the plants might come to a bit of a sudden stop.
So in pations, do I need to be...
Pations, I mean, they usually, if you don't deadhead them, they will produce quite a noticeable seed pod, which will obviously expand. They do make quite explosive pods do in pations. Right. So they've got... I mean, if you can go along and obviously take any of the spent flowers off, but certainly things like marigolds, obviously geraniums, pelargoniums, right. Fuchsias, if you don't take the seeds off them, they become bright purple in colour, and you can use them for wine making. Right, you need quite a lot of them, apparently. The wine does taste quite good. I sampled it many years ago, but you need obviously a lot of those. So so basically the rule is yes, more deadheading you can do. I mean, normally
presumably as
verbena, a bit of a tidy up on verbenias, because the flowering spike, and then you nip back. And usually, as you follow back, you'll see where the new flowers are forming. Yep. And if you're unsure, then get a pair of snippers or very sharp secateurs and just take the plants down off the basket, and give them a really good trim up. And then at that point, give them a really good feed.
Yep.
And remember, if your hanging basket is in that sort of state where it's produced lots of flower and it's not producing lots of leaf, maybe change the feed over to something like Miracle-Gro, which is higher in nitrogen.
So that'll help the leaves grow.
And if it's the opposite way, you've got lots of flower, or you've not got enough flower, you've gone through that process, then a bit of high potassium, so a bit of phosphagen or a bit of tomato food. What I'm trying to do in mine is alternate the two. If you can. I mean, it's no, you buy a pack of each, and you go through the season and run out of both at the same time, probably. That's good. But and remember with hanging baskets, try and give them a good water before you feed, because the feed's taken up a lot better then.
And it stops the roots burning, which is the other tip that you gave us.
That's it. Scorching is going to be a problem, especially in view of the temperatures we've just experienced last month.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. And we're doing really well with raspberries this year, aren't we, Chris? I think the weather must be perfect for them.
I think it is, it's going to be a good year. I think, raspberries and strawberries have done well, haven't they? They've enjoyed this sunshine. So if you've got some summer cropping varieties, so those are the varieties which have produced, obviously, your wonderful, bountiful crops now, those are the canes you'll need to cut right back to encourage, and you'll notice at the base you're having lots of new shoots are starting to form. They'll carry your fruit next year, so it's important that you cut out the fruiting canes from this year right down to soil level, and you tie in all those new shoots which will give you a crop for next year. That's summer cropping varieties. If you've got autumn cropping varieties like Autumn Bliss, then of course you basically let all the canes grow and fruit right through the course of the year, and then of course you cut the whole lot back in February, early March.
Yep.
But make sure, Peter, you get the right variety, because there's nothing worse than cutting the wrong time.
And then you have to wait a year for a crop.
That's it. Yeah. So, but it's good. And of course, again, if you're into your autumn bliss, which are starting to do their thing now, give them a bit of an extra feed, a bit of extra water, obviously. And if you've planted your canes back in during the bare root season, a lot of people still might be thinking, are they going to grow? This is the month, if they're going to do anything, they will put that burst of growth on. So be patient, but if they've had plenty of water over the last few weeks, then they should be showing some decent signs of growth.
Brilliant. And what should we be doing with our lawn at the moment, Chris? I mean, mine's looking pretty patchy, shall we say?
It's looking probably a little bit dry, a little bit straw-like.
I haven't cut it for about a month now, just because I thought,
no, exactly, you're doing the right thing.
Give it a little bit more chance.
Yeah, have you got any? Is there any weeds still?
Other than the clover that is now finishing sort of flowering, so the bees are not quite so interested in it anymore. Right. It's not too bad, but there's certainly the odd bit of plantain in there. And
because now plants are flowering, they're at the most vulnerable for good control using a selective lawn weed killer. Okay. So if you've got a problem with things like plantain, maybe dandelion, maybe buttercups can be quite, then now would be a good time to get a lawn weed killer on.
So what are you thinking? Evergreen?
I probably wouldn't go for a weed and feed. I would probably go for a liquid one off the shelf and mix it up get yourself a dedicated, preferably a red watering can. Red for danger. With mine, I did a little bit, got me permanent marker pen and put a skull and crossbones on it, so it reminds myself not to use it. With a nice fine rose, mix some of the products up, and then obviously in the late afternoon, early evening when it's cooled down a bit, go along and spot treat those broadleaf weeds. Remember, lawn weed killers work. They don't affect the lawn, the monocots. They only affect anything with very broad leaves. So they're very selective in what they kill. But now would be a really good time to do that. And I think this year, because it's been so dry, because our lawns have taken such a battering, it's probably a good year to be able to control those problem weeds.
And about a month ago, I put some seed down on a couple of bits where I had slabs previously. And I don't know whether the seed was, I'm going to say, a year and a half old, as all my other bits lived in the shed that gets cooked. And even though I was watering it every day, not a single seed has germinated.
Really? Well, that's unusual for lawn seed.
I'm really surprised about, but I'm going to have to do it again. Mm-hmm. Should I wait for this really hot, dry weather to pass and then...
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do a lot of weather watching, really. I wouldn't really do any overseeding or reseeding until well into August, maybe into early September. If there's some forecasting, some showery rain and our lawns start to pick up again, then work with the weather. But like anything, isn't it? We've just got to make that decision. And lawn seed's not expensive, so if you can get some in, and it gives it a bit of a chance, or you get a reasonable amount of germination, at least you've got the starting, then you can overseed where you've seeded. That's not a problem.
That won't be a problem.
But September, September is usually a good month. And remember, weather pattern wise, we'll be getting heavier dewfalls really in the next month or so, which again will add a little bit of moisture to our lawns in the evening, and that just might help the germination.
Okay.
But,
maybe I'll leave it till after I've had my summer holiday and put some fresh seed down there.
And maybe also, Peter, as well as just using lawn seed, obviously you can buy lawn patch kits at the Garden Centre, and sometimes adding those products to your lawn might be in a different way. So if you've had not good success with just pure lawn seed, then maybe have a look at the other products on the market and have a play with those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Today's show was brought to you by Buckingham Garden Centre and Nurseries. The show was hosted by Chris Day and Peter Brown. The show was produced by Peter Brown. And our thanks to Chiltern Music Therapy for providing the music. Thanks for listening.
At Chiltern Music Therapy, we want everyone to know the difference that music can make in their lives. From parents and their premature babies in hospital to grandparents with dementia. We provide music therapy and community music services to people of all ages and needs across England. We work both digitally and in person in people's homes, care homes, schools, hospitals and hospices. Find out more at chilternmusictherapy.co.uk.